All right, kitty cats. Meow, 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 meow. Um, StreamYard is doing this weird. Apparently, I'm simul streaming, and I see two of myself, and it's strange. Horizontal me. Oh, I gotta change the media assets. Nate must have been using it. We don't want. We gotta get me up here in the little Kalepa Salt Bay, but with Woo. That's what that is. It's the Salt Bay with my face, with a handlebar mustache and a neckerchief, and Woo. I don't. So I'm definitely not going over an hour and a half. Can you hide it? Yeah, hide it. I just hit it. I hit it, Jeremy. But then if I go off to the side, am I just messing with the vertical view or am I slaloming? Jeremy, loved you and Sherry's talk with what's her name? Sherry's sister's name. I'm blanking on it. Tracy. It's really good. I actually haven't finished it yet, but it's excellent. I need to go back and finish it. I'll probably get some time and space to do that today. I'm just gonna jump more into it because I don't have a. I finished this Uber Boyo talk. It's in the notes below. I haven't followed him a lot. Uber Boyo, he popped up. I mean, he's been in the JBP Jordan Peterson sphere for a long time. I can't years ago. I remember the last time I paid attention to him was years ago. And it was only because I just pay attention to TLC stuff, this little corner of the internet. So, Gray, Pickens, Tracy, look at all these people on top of it. What up, guys? And I don't remember even who he was talking to. He was maybe talking to Jordan Peterson or Peugeot or something like that. Very smart guy. Here's a little bit of my struggle with how to frame this. It gets into the religion versus differences between religion and culture. Because I just put that in, I just Googled it or whatever, searched it, and so it must be Google's AI. I did it in Chrome, and then I also did it in the Brave browser, but it was similar. And let's just read. Closing this. Let's just read some of that first, and then we'll talk more about Uber Boyo. What up, Donnie? Donnie. The chats aren't shared between the two. That is annoying. Okay, let's share the differences here. And then I'm going to try to open this up earlier than normal and maybe even try to bring up a few points of some of the videos and content that I put below, talk about a few of those things, and then we'll open it up, maybe close it out in an hour. We'll see. Because I got a lot of stuff to finish out this week, mainly because I got a couple big outdoor projects that I'm working on, that I'm prepping for, have been prepping for, trying to finish this weekend, prepping for winter, I don't know that I'm going to be able to count on. It's going to be fairly nice this week, 50s. Fridays, maybe even 60 degrees, pretty beautiful. Also, quick aside, we had the Northern Lights last night. We got some really pretty Northern Lights, and my friend Sarah sent a bunch of pictures from very rural North Dakota that has much less light pollution, and that was unbelievable. So, all right. Anyhow, I have stuff to do. Let's zoom in on this and see what we say here. So AI overview says, and this is not surprising because we're going to talk about a few things in here. And it says culture. What's the difference between religion and culture? Culture is a broad shared way of life of a group, including customs, beliefs, and arts, while religion is a specific system of faith and worship, typically involving a belief in a supernatural being. Okay, first off, that's all propositional. That's all Gnostic. How they cage belief is almost exclusively intellectual abstract, which I would characterize, and I asked this later, which I would characterize basically is ideological, because propositional belief per se, in and of itself, divorced from all the other P's, is not true belief. That's Jordan Peterson's whole, what do you mean by believe? You believe in Jesus. What does that mean? You believe in the resurrection. What does that mean? It's not just assenting to ideas. So a few things. It's a specific system. Number one, what do they say about system? How does this relate to Paul Kingsnorth's The Machine? I want to just like go into like a fractal tree of AI. What do you mean by this? What do you mean by this? What do you mean by this? And guess what? It will be an infinite regress. Like guaranteed. It will keep going forever. What do you mean by this? What do you mean by this? What do you mean by this? Because here's the thing. Knowledge and belief is not just propositional assertion of information. I just want to see what they say by explain this. What does it say? How do we go? Where'd it go? I said explain this. Explain it. It's not doing anything. Anyhow, you get what I mean. I don't know how to work this. Religion is often involving belief in a supernatural being, right? Supernatural. Above the natural. But it's some sort of like spaghetti monster god object in the sky thing, right? Which is really deism. It's part of it is like moral therapeutic deism. It's not the God who is in. And this has come up recently. People have been talking a lot more about pantheism, or who came out as a pantheist. Phlebas was asking me, like, is Rob Bell essentially just a pantheist? I think I linked to Rob Bell talk in here. But that's once you get, in my opinion, truly, once you get at like a higher level conversation about these ideas, you start to have to deal with those concepts of like, is pantheism true? Is panpsychism true? Idealism, like what is primary, mind or matter? And how do those things relate? And I think in what I would say is my Christian worldview of somewhat like a panentheism, God is in and outside. He's both, because it's Christologic, identity of identity and non-identity. God is in the world and outside of the world. He's beyond all those categories. And part of that has to do with doctrines of the incarnation, because to me, all this stuff goes back to Christology and incarnation. Like, I think that's just, how do you make sense of unity and multiplicity, being and non-being, perception, the seer? This came up with like Uber Boyo just kept like, he's making some good points, particularly at the end of his conversation. Let me see. Do I have that one pulled up? I think I do. I might have to refresh it because I don't think my comment's in here. Shut up. Okay. But let's keep going with this first. Okay, we'll get to Uber Boyo next. You're next. Religion is often a component of culture. So it's saying religion is often a component of culture, so it's under culture. But see, like fundamentally, if you take religion as religio, like a ligament, the thing that holds things together, the thing that unifies diversity, religion is, like Polanyi has the book about this, the tacit dimension. Religion is the fundamental assumptions, whether implicit or explicit, that bind anything that is together, any body, whether that would be a culture, whether that would be a nation, whether it would be a household, whether it would be a marriage, whether it would be a friendship, all of those things, this would be my assertion, has a religion, a religio, something that holds it together. Some of those are consciously articulable and known. I would say the vast majority of them probably aren't, or at least they're going to be unconscious to you. This is the tacit dimension that Polanyi talks about, with like the iceberg floating in the water, right? Like the very top is visible above the water, but like the vast bulk of it is under the water. You can't see it. And so, okay, back. You're not propositionally aware of it. And flipping modernists just drive me crazy, man. Okay. So culture can and does exist without a religious component. Disagree, AI. Disagree. Hard disagree. See, like this, again, you have AI has a adopted, aggregated, borrowed religious framework written by a bunch of people who made computers and do coding and do all this stuff and think of knowledge just as information that informs this, and it's wrong. How about that? So culture includes non-religious aspects like language, food, and social structures. Oh yeah, language, food, and social structures aren't religious. Uh-huh. Yeah, they aren't. What you eat isn't religious. Yeah, go read the Bible. I mean, go to any go to go to Shabbat. Go to like a Seder. Go to a temple, like a Hindu temple. The food that they eat has nothing to do with their religion. Oh my gosh. Like how come on. Okay. Culture, scope, a broad umbrella that encompasses all aspects of a group's shared life, including language, food, social organization, art, and traditions. See, this is what I mean. What is the difference? Because to me, that is religion. But it's not necessarily, and some of it is visible and some of it is not visible. Because the ligaments in your body, they're the things that are underneath what is seen. It's the foundations. It is like religio and credo. It's what the credos and the things that you say and the dogmas rise out of. It's like the stuff underneath. Can arise organically over time through history, geography, and group interactions. Sure, religion also does that. There is an emergent component to it, and it is tied to place and language, I think. Okay, whatever. Religion, more specific, focusing on a system of faith and worship. That is so machine, systematic, analytical, organized. It's just, oh man, it's just very dumb. Yeah, they're a modernist psyop. Okay, now Uber Boyo. I want to talk about this. So, Rod, I think I first saw a few people have been talking about it in the thing, but Rod shared this with me. Where is it? Has Jordan Peterson lost the youth? Uber Boyo, whatever. I think it's let's go over here. This guy, look at him, this guy. And a lot of the stuff he's saying is very smart, but yet he also is very modernist in this. He's more of an enlightened modernist. Oh, I just threw my neck out. Welcome to being old. I probably did, and I'll just realize it later. So, sorry, I got distracted. I texted Kale this morning. So Uber Boyo he's talking about, it's not exactly cognitive science, but he's talking about like mental mapping and neuroscience and seeing which parts of the brain light up when associated with different things. And then he was mentioning certain things like, oh damn, what was the point? I'm not gonna be able to re-articulate it. He was saying, because he was talking about Jordan Peterson and psychopathy and how he's just gone off the rails with political stuff and Israel and Zionism and whatever. And he can't, he's having confirmation bias when he's applying his psychology to certain things. But then Uber Boyo made one point where he said, this is the part that I want to talk about, because he was talking about, and it is interesting. Like there are these dynamics going on in Uber Boyo's. I'm guessing he's 10 years younger than me or something like that, a little bit more maybe. And he was saying, he made this comment. He said the youth have the highest fluid intelligence of any generation. He was saying, like, why did they vote for Mamdani? Why did they vote for Trump? Why did they vote for different things? Because they're sick of the status quo. They're sick of the culture war. They're sick of older generations telling them what to think about things when they don't trust them and they don't trust the institutions. So they're like, whatever. It's a little bit of doomerism, because it's a little bit of like, what the hell? We'll give it to this younger person and we'll try this. Who knows? Let's mix it up a little bit. We're tired of kind of the static pendulum shift culture war stuff that we've been doing most of my youth and adult life. We're tired of that stuff. And they're also tired, I think, of I'm going to bring in some medium stuff and information technology because I do want to bring in a generational component of culture and how culture is translated and passed on from one generation to the other. I would say a lot of modernists assume that things are translated through just mere propositional, didactic, analytical education. This is one of my big pet peeves of Joe Rogan when he's always talking about AI and education, and he had Brett Weinstein on recently, and it'll get into like, we just need to educate people about this. We need to educate them. Like education is often the answer of how we fix the world and teach people of how to not do these dumb things. But they don't understand, in my opinion, education and what you think education is rooted in religion and culture. And so, like, how you initiate education, again, it's a kind of a catechesis of like, what are the procedural steps and rituals and catechesis of how do we train someone to be initiated into a certain kind of culture, which will include a certain kind of thinking and being. And this is part of the modernist problem is and the part of American liberalist West. Part of it, it's like what the Collinses, Malcolm and Simone Collins call the urban monoculture, liberalism, whatever, is we just assume that these things are like universal values, but we don't realize like, no, these things are emergent and largely propositionally we have colonized the world through Californication and media and technology, and medium is the message. But like, oh man, there's a bunch of guys from my son's cross country team out running. You think he's out running with them? No, he's not. And so education isn't just where our minds are empty buckets, like or like hard drives of a computer. This is part of how we've been colonized by computer thinking. And again, it's back to like pantheism, panpsychism stuff. Like, is it just a computer? Because this still has the mind-body problem, mind materiality problem. From where is the information originating and coming to go into the computer? And like, where do we get base reality? Like or Rogan last night, like, are we living in base reality, or is it a metaverse, or are we in a simulation? Okay, but again, you're just kicking the can. Where is base reality? And all that stuff is, in my opinion, abstract and stupid because it's just like to even ask the question, are we living in base reality, is somewhat to not be participating in base reality because it's abstract. It's not being present. It's sorry, I'm gonna go off on a little tangent. I was having this conversation with my son last night. What the hell was the context? I need to think about this because this is important. I gotta remember. He might wake up and come and tell me. He's got a late class this morning. What was it when we were talking about perception? And part of this is evolution of consciousness and ego. Oh, he was talking about, oh yeah, because we were talking about psychedelics. And I can't remember how we got on psychedelics, but he was saying one of the reasons he thinks about it, and it's kind of interesting to him, is people talk about the dissolution of ego. And like when you do psychedelics, you kind of you can lose. That's one of the things people talk about, your self-awareness. And so like your self-focus. And I was telling him that that's tied to humility. That's why I love that Lewis quote, is like, humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. And so it's not that you go away with humility or less of an ego self-awareness focus. Like, what do I think about this? How am I feeling? I. You're just your being is participating more fully in another or in another thing. Your consciousness isn't turned inward and like a self-reflexive focused, it's pointed outward. You are engaging and participating in the world. You cannot ask a question like, are we in base reality, if you are participating in the world? You're in ethereal, self-reflexive, abstract thought land. And that to me, like, it assumes a certain understand, like, you are participating in a certain spiritual medium of you need savings throws. You're participating in a medium that you don't even know that you're doing, which is knowledge as abstract information, which is a modernist view, which I think we're all swimming in, and some of us and people are moving out of, and it's kind of a fluid thing. But like even Uber Boyo, back to his thing, when he says the youth have the highest rate of fluid intelligence, I said, how are we measuring intelligence? And even the question of measuring, when you measure, this is the hard problem of all perception. It's the double slit experiment. When you perceive an experiment, it affects it. So when your mind and consciousness is looking at something and measuring, even the act of measuring affects the way experiments happen. At least so we think. Paying attention to it. It's just like you can never, this is kind of radical subjectivity or whatever, or perception itself. You can never divorce the perceiver from the thing perceived. You can't know anything about the world objectively where you are divorced from the world. That kind of knowledge is absolutely impossible to you. Because point to me any information that exists apart from your perception of it. You know nothing apart from your perception of it. It's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. And I feel like people don't really wrestle with that and what that means. And we definitely don't participate in the world with that, because that's kind of what my son was saying, is he's like, he's interested in like the psychedelic thing a little bit. And I'm like, I really don't, this may come as a surprise to people, but I would say when I'm in intellectual mode, I'm thinking about these things, but even like thinking ahead of my head, I kind of, one of the reasons I'm not really that curious about psychedelics is I feel like that's a lot of times when I'm not in Zen, when I'm not in anxiety and worry and doubt and fear and resentment and all these negative fruits, that's how I participate in reality. I'm often not very, this probably doesn't seem apparent for the way that I stream and how I talk about things, or like the things that I talk about, but I'm not often, maybe this isn't true. I'm not often in my head. Whatever. Okay, let's move on. But like Brett will often talk about this. We need to educate people. We need to educate people. But all of this is assuming culture and religion. And again, I'm going to open people up to this because I want to get people in here to say, like, what is the difference? Really, what is the difference? I don't know that there's a meaningful difference. I do want to let's look up, that's probably enough talking about all these videos. Let's get rid of them. And then Rob, oh yeah, Phlebas asked if Rob is just a pantheist. I don't know. Let's look up the different etymological differences between religion. Etymological differences between religion and culture. Because you know what? This is very Barfieldian. It's just like the history in English words, right? History in words is you. Let's look at this, and then I'll open it up. Maybe I'll look. I'll drop the link, and then people can come in and play, because like I said, I want to get going. What up, Elliot? Hello. I will pin this, and then I'm going to go look at the words, and then we can talk about it for a little bit if people want to come in and play. Stop it. Pin message. Okay. Etymological differences. The word religion and culture have related but distinct etymological roots. Culture stemming from the Latin colere, which is to cultivate or to till, while religion comes from religiare, to bind or to tie. Now that's interesting. That's way more interesting than what AI was talking about. Because what AI was talking about is rooted in, I would say, propositional tyranny and narratival constraints. Whereas the words themselves, like those, feel how rooted these words are. Like they're rooted in action. They're rooted in materiality. I'm going to go on a little McLuhan rant, because McLuhan in his 1978, just look up on YouTube, McLuhan 78, it's not a debate, it's a conversation about medium and message and language. And he talks about how, like, modern English, for example, is very disconnected versus ancient religions like Hebrew or I was talking to my a Chinese friend from church who was talking about this the other day. They have very like their languages are very rooted in material reality and physical reality, and I think it kind of like a superior warp hypothesis or Dasein, talking about place and language shaping the way that you think about things. When your language itself, the symbology and the meaning of the words themselves are rooted in, and this is why words are fossils, like Barfield talks about. It's so fascinating because, like that, it's to cultivate or to till and to bind. That's giving you so much more to work with than framework narratival assumptions. Anyhow, we can come back to this. Sam, you're here. What do you want to say, buddy? Are you your internet? I feel like
Yeah, no. I am on my phone, and there could be some wind in the background too. So if you need to cut me off, feel free to.
Okay,
I can hear you. Okay. So yep. So outside in nature. So but I was kind of thinking about it as someone who, I guess, like you probably remember the whole Donald Miller thing where he didn't like using the term Christianity, and you're very much, well, I don't want to speak for you, but I get the sense you're part of that subculture, and then you opted to move into a thicker culture. I guess I'm curious, like, what do you see as the overlap of religion and culture? Because, I mean, they definitely interact, and it's not one-to-one, though. I mean, I'm sure you remember the phrase, or you've heard the phrase, oh, it's not a religion, it's a relationship, which, I don't know, in some ways that's kind of a vapid phrase, I personally think, but I also think that, well, I've had Corinthians 13 on my mind recently, which is that for we know in part, we see in part, right?
Mm-hmm.
That which is in part is done. So, I mean, obviously, to use, I don't know, maybe some reformees, I mean, common grace is also part of how we encounter God too, right? And that's not necessarily bound to culture.
Oh, common grace, such a trigger. I'll not go on my common grace bashing because of where common grace comes from and is rooted. Because again, that just is it's drawing arbitrary abstract lines that I don't think people understand and no one can draw. But to your point, to try to answer your point, and I think it's related to what Phlebas and Yanni are saying in the comments here. Like Phlebas said, English bashing is so boring. Expand your vocabulary, troglodytes. And Yanni said, English is fine. You just have to believe you're thinking. Yes, which is here. So here's broadly how I see this, as Jordan Peterson would say, right? Like, what does it mean to say I believe in God? I'm terrified of what that means. What he's saying is, like, I think if you say you believe that, it means that, like, that whole saying where it's like Christianity hasn't been found tried and wanting, it's been found difficult and never tried. That's what Jordan Peterson is saying. To actually say you're a Christian means that you follow Christ and you live like him. And people who want to say that they're Christians and that don't do that are in some degree of self-delusion, myself included, because I ain't living like Christ all the time. There's no way possible. But so here's the thing with English and language. That's a little bit of a different side. So McLuhan in that lecture is basically saying that a lot of modern language evolved from the Phoenicians, because the Phoenicians were traders and they were trying to trade between all these different ethnic cultural groups that were very sincerity culture, because they were formed by their language and their region, because we didn't have the kind of technology to move all over the world. And so their consciousness, they couldn't they wouldn't have even been able to think of something like the secret sacred self, because it was fundamentally the individual and the collective were still united because of the constraints of their language and the kind of rootedness of their language. That would be my assertion that I think McLuhan would agree with. But then when language started evolving and becoming abstract, which English is fundamentally abstract, like the letters have nothing to do with anything rooted in actual material reality. Like maybe at one point you could say like an A was like a spear or something like that. But like the letters, all they do is they correspond to sounds that have nothing to do with material reality. Like if you just looked at the word apple and the letters in apples, it points you nothing to like an apple. Whereas in ancient languages, it does. But that's part of what allows the emergence of the modern individual, the secret sacred self, the authenticity culture. All that stuff, I think, is rooted in language. And
Yeah.
part of that is related to culture. And so I'm not, so Felipe, I wouldn't say that I'm language bashing. You're thinking I'm falling into an either or thing, and I would say listen to me better. I'm not ever doing an either or thing. I'm always doing a both and thing. You just have to know what English is. It's fine. I love English is fine. It's the only language I know, and I don't know it very well. But
Yeah.
you have to understand when you are speaking and thinking primarily in English, it is the medium is the message. Like when
Yeah.
you're speaking English, it's a certain thing.
Well, I mean, language has its limits, but we all keep talking, right? I mean, and I guess part of what we're looking for is our story, right? And some of that is, well, revealed in the words we use, but I mean, some of it is revealed in nature, some of it's revealed in community. For not all, but for a lot of Christians, much of it's revealed in sacraments. So, yeah.
Let's keep looking. I want to read some more in this thing. So it says, so culture is to cultivate and to till. So that almost seems like a form of catechesis in a sense, where like to cultivate is so like if we think about these terms in terms of like gardening, the religion is almost the bind or the tie. It's like the fence, the boundaries, the like distinction between garden, not garden. And then culture is like the thing that you do within the religion. It's like the forming and the shaping that goes on within the boundaries of the religion, because the religion is basically, and that's what I was saying. I was saying every body earlier, and when I started, every body is essentially a religion. So like a family has a body, a nation has a body, the world is a body, the solar system is a body, the universe is a body. You know, this cup is a body. Like all of these things have religions. It's what makes it this and not something else. It's why you can even talk about this and not this. It has a coherence to it, but then the culture is like what you do within and about the body, perhaps. Maybe that's the difference. I don't know. What do you think about that, Sam?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way to think about it. Is that, I mean, language, I guess by definition, it draws boundaries, right? So, like, for example, I'm in a garden and there's, gosh, probably literally hundreds, maybe even thousands of plants here. And by definition, saying one plant is X, that means you're saying it's also, well, you're including, but you're also simultaneously excluding too.
That's Christologic right there. To say anything is something, you are apophatically, in a hidden way, saying it is not everything else.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah, let's go back. Let's keep reading here. You can interrupt me if you have stuff to say. So,
we're good. I'll stay on as long as I'm the only one.
okay. So listen, come in, break the fourth wall. At some point, I'm going to have people email me occasionally. I might do a few randos here and there with people who reach out to me because, I don't know, sometimes people just don't want to come on live streams. Busut, look at that bushy collar, you beautiful man. What do you think, David Busatil?
I've been thinking about something that people are starting to talk about. This idea that like maybe the religion downstream of culture and all that business is that I feel that it actually has been religion downstream of culture. That's part of the new atheism.
It's part of the what? You're cutting out. See, because you're saying religion is downstream from culture, but I was saying culture is downstream from religion.
I know that gets said, but it does go both ways. That movement was a result of 9/11, like a historical political event. How many people, including Neil, have said that was like a turning point for them? What, not a religious leader saying something, but a historical event. in the faith that no one here practiced, right? Why did a bunch of Muslims crashing into a building mean that Christians lost their faith?
Well, I don't, yeah. I'm not saying that doesn't happen a little bit, but maybe what that is a kind of a revelation that you never really had faith, because maybe what your faith is a false sense of security, and that, like, I'm okay, this is good, this is working. Oh, wait, it's not. They crashed into our towers. Now I don't believe that, but that's faith as utility. I mean, that's not, I would argue that's not faith.
I would say that people read. Sorry, Dave. Okay, I would say that people rethought their faith. I mean, because a lot of people came to faith too. Because I think it was a shocking and very jarring moment if you were alive at that time.
But I mean, part of what we're talking about with all this and the apophatic thing is like, you don't. It's kind of the hidden and the revealed and the aware. Like, your faith is not just your awareness. This is the whole, like, many will come to me, Lord, Lord, and say, didn't I do this, 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 and depart from me, I never knew you. And the weeds grow up with the wheat. Like, your faith is not necessarily simultaneously connected to your conscious, aware self-identity.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think I would mostly agree with that.
All right, Michael.
I would agree with that, but I'm also like one of the few Reformed people who are actually like involved in PLC. So I don't know, maybe sounding a little Calvinist there.
Me?
Oh, not a smile. I thought it was funny, but I won't quit my day job.
Mike, tell us what's up.
All right, so this was kind of the subject of my book in the subtitle there, Cultures that Last or whatever. So thinking about this, and the cultivation part of it is super important, I think, because okay, so if you think about like a plant, what holds the plant together, it's the structure of the plant, all of its bark and the cells and all that stuff, that's binding it together. But sometimes, like, if you want a plant to come to maturity, it needs a little help. So you put like a stake in the ground, you tie a little piece of string around it, and then the little weak shoot can get some support so it grows into a self-sustaining thing.
So that's the culture thing.
So the culture is the stick and the piece of string. And the interesting thing is the way I wrote it, and I wrote an article, it didn't quite click fully until after I finished my book, but it's when God gives Adam and Eve the garments of skin, because it's thinking about like the dependency of an infant, and of course this is all supposed to help us learn our dependency on God. But what that garment of skin allows is it allows Eve to hold her infant without being handicapped, like, because an infant can't do anything for itself. And that means that a mother can't do anything for herself if she has to like literally hold the infant the whole time. And if you think about like, cavemen or some primitive pre-cultural culture, like what are you going to do? Just put your baby like down on the dirt or whatever, so it's a very tricky situation. But if you build structures that allow for that baby to grow a little more health, and this extends out into houses and gardens and all the things that we think of as culture, then that baby is able to grow up, and then it's tied to its parents and broader community through other things that bind it, emotional connections and relational connections. And so I see culture as very much just the very variable thing that allows and supports the religio. And that's why it's like you have so many different churches. The difference in churches, and it's dumb when people want to like argue about it. I mean, you can argue about them. You can say one's better than another, but they all have different strengths and weaknesses in building that religio body. If it, you know, and if it's not doing that, like if it's not producing people that are fully people and families and communities and relationships, then it's not really working well. But I think that's why, if you have different languages, you have different modes of worship and things like those are all cultural expressions. The true religion, which is building the body of God, the body of the church, humanity, it can grow in a whole variety of different cultures, but it can't grow without any culture at all. You need something. So that's how I see it.
Okay, I have some ideas. Sam, do you have some ideas? I'm preoccupied for a bit yet.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in here. I think I've been thinking about culture in terms of like local distances, network background dichotomy. I think maybe what you're asking here, Luke, is like, is religion and culture, are they both the background that are informing the network? Are they both the context that if you take time, if you can step back and kind of observe and understand what that context or that background is, it'll allow you to operate more effectively within the network. You can actually make more sense of your lived day to day. It's if you can see the space around you and maybe play around with the parameters of the space around you, whether that's culture or religion, then you can actually respond to that, whether you want to step into that culture or religion, or you want to step away from it, or you want to change, you want to change how that is arranged. Maybe the wineskins are not allowing the wine to fully bloom, and you need to maybe change how those wineskins operate. I think about my own, like when I just think, well, what is culture? I just think about like, well, I grew up, I'm American, right? What does that mean? Well, as an American, I have certain downstream cultural artifacts, and that's what I prefer, what I like, the language I use, how I move about the world. I'm a Michigander, like shout out to my fellow Michigan man, Sam. That has a real impact on my culture. Where I was raised in Michigan impacts my culture. I was raised in the sticks, out in the boonies, not down here in the D. So the question, I guess, that I'm struggling with, and maybe I'm glad we're struggling together, and thank you for opening up a space for us to struggle through this, is how much our culture and religion united, and maybe in our weird American pluralistic experiment where you've got the church state division, it's not nearly as sort of united. And when I think about Sam Tiedemann, the other Sam, the finest of Sams in the corner, we all hope one day to reach the pinnacles of that Sam. His whole idea of this background religion in the form of moralistic therapeutic deism, to me, that speaks also to what you're trying to get at here. It's like it's in the background, it's influencing us. It's sort of like it changes the way that we think about the world, we see the world, the language we use, like it shapes our perception, it shapes what we can do in conscious space and time and ordering our day-to-day. And is that a religion, or is that more of a cultural thing? I mean, again, and the last thing I'll say is, in the Areopagus, he says, St. Paul says, you seem very religious people, but their culture was like, they just like to talk about stuff. They had ideas. Like the culture is, we just like to like hang out and talk about stuff. And that's, the culture and religion sort of playing together. And then he says, here's this new religion, the God of, all things. And in that religious structure, it's sort of actually like, it's a structureless structure. It's a groundless ground. It's a personal, relational reality that sort of breaks down your even idea of what religion is. it's sort of the stone that breaks apart, you know, all the other. It's the stone that hits the base of, you know, the brass feet of the god
Yeah.
Babylon, and it's like it totally
Hell
just
yeah.
hey. Anyways,
So we got some new guys in here. I want to respond to both those things, say what some of my thoughts were, and then welcome Rigel and Alan because they're both amazing, handsome gentlemen. So I had a further illustration of the idea of religion just being the body, like the it's setting the walls, the arena perhaps for the gardening and the cultivation to happen if we go back to those etymological differences. And there's obviously kind of a connection there because you almost don't set the walls of the boundary. You almost don't have that body without, you know, the seed of cultivation is inherent within the body itself. Like you're not gonna, the whole idea of having the garden is you're wanting to cultivate it. And so I thought of, and because it's such a biblical metaphor, right? It's just seeds. It's almost like as if the body is the seed, and the culture is what you do with that seed. And I think so. This is my thought: is like religion is a given. It really is a given in that it's a gift. There is no religionless place. You either accept the religion that you're given, or you reject it. But I think this is what's hard. This is the thing that you were talking about, Sam, most recently about Christianity. And because I think it's Christ, the eternal Tao, identity of identity and non-identity. And what Gerard was talking about is like, these are the things preached from the foundations of the world. There's no, I think in a post-Christian world, truly, sorry, people who aren't going to like this narratively, there is no escaping Christ. Because you either do Christ or you do Antichrist. Like atheism is like, oh, I no longer believe in God. Yeah, you do. That's why we have Christian atheists now, is we're realizing in Tom Holland, there's no escaping it. That is your culture. You came from it. So like, yeah, you're like, I don't like some of these ideas and dogmas, but you're a Christian. That's your culture. You can't get away from it. Douglas Murray, Tom Holland. Like it just is. And it even makes me think of, I've mentioned this a bunch of times. Last thing I'll say, and then we'll welcome 3 people now. Wow. We've been blessed with the revelation of Lance and Rigel and Alan. Is my priest had given me that article from like the 70s of, it's an Orthodox journal article of purification by atheism. And basically that's what they were saying in it. It's like atheism is a gift. It's getting rid of the bullshit. Like it'll force you to deal with your own demons and a lot of the lies that we've had, because we were handed moral therapeutic deism and then we got a bunch of atheists. And I say, yeah, amen. Any religion that can be deconstructed, absolutely deconstruct that. Burn that shit to the ground. Pyrotheology. I rest my case. Okay. Let's go in order. Alan.
All right. Is anyone else getting feedback?
Nope. I'm just getting handsome.
I'm hearing a little feedback.
Yeah. Someone's a bad person and should leave the stream forever in shame. But it's not my job to judge, just to say and accuse. The only thing I like, the thing that about ancient people didn't like separate like, oh, there's my religious life and my scientific life. It's just they just lived and they're like, well, I'm a Greek person or I'm an Egyptian or I'm a Chinese person, like whatever, I'm part of this Han dynasty. They just had a world. They're like, yeah, that's that. And I think with a lot of educated people, you know, when I talk to them and try and like, you know, sort of break down and like get into some of these topics, you know, and you'll give examples of like, isn't it funny how this person believes 2 things that are in tension? And then when you're talking to someone who's educated, they'll be like, yeah, but they just do that because of this other factor, because of how they were born or where but they're only saying those things because of X, Y, or Z. And I'm like, yeah, but how do you know you're not just saying that because of some other factor? We're just like playing these games of like, oh, well, you know, this is all explained and held in tension with like this meta-analysis. Like if I zoom the camera just the amount of distance to solve this problem. And I'm like, well, we could just zoom the camera out further. Maybe you're just saying this because you weren't hugged enough as a child or you weren't blah, blah, blah. So like to counter. We do a good job of countering any one moment of like, look at the water we swim in, and it's just like, oh, well, that water, the reason you're seeing that is just because of X, Y, or Z. Well, what's the reason you're saying that? The reason that you're countering this way is because, if you say, oh, college is stupid because look at this bad college, and they'll be like, yeah, but that college is only run that way because it was, bought by this person, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, the only reason you're defending college is because you went to a college and had a great experience. So we're not actually getting anywhere. We're just having the same back and forth, and we can't actually zoom the camera out and talk about the water we're swimming in.
Nice. Thank you. Does anybody have anything in direct response to that? If not, we will move on to Rigel. Also, little administrative note. Be sure to check out Free Rillian's Chill stream tonight. GK Chesterton and Chill. It's a really, the people who know. And the people who don't know should know, because it's a major corner component and it's just full of good stuff. What is your actual, Nick? I should know how to do this better. What's your actual channel? I can't
Free
do this.
Rillian.
Is it just at Free Rillian? We'll find it. Okay, Rigel, roll.
Hey,
What up, boy?
so good to see all of you. Oh my gosh. I just got a lovely email from Sam this morning. I just feel like very enriched from
Which
the TLC.
Sam? This Sam?
This
Sam on screen?
Yeah,
That guy?
Sam on
Okay.
screen. Yeah, he was just kind of coming out that he's coming back in to the TLC. And that's the paradox.
Nigel, I told you not to tell people that.
I'm so sorry.
How dare you out them?
So I just turned on my screen, and there you are live streaming, and you're talking about culture, and I don't actually know the context of this conversation, so I just jumped on.
Ooh, that's all right. The thing that started was just like, is there a difference between religion and culture? And then I thought AI had a very dumb, modernist, abstracted take on it. And it's just something that I've been wanting to talk about, because I think this question is one of the things. Here we go. Go check out Free Rillian tonight, GK Chesterton and Chill. But I think this question is often behind so many disagreements. Like even like the information versus meaning distinction is like, you can't information without realizing the medium the information's coming from and the culture and the religion that's informing it is like, this is part of the problem of objectivists and like Rogan when he's always talking about education. The answer is just education, education, education. Well, if education is just information while having no awareness of the religion that it's coming out of and the culture, like that's what's got us here. Like throwing more money at that is not going to help anything.
Well, so the thought that I had, yesterday, literally, I just like picked up a new hobby of cooking sourdough bread.
Hell yeah, boy.
And the way
Not too bad, Joe got another one.
and the way you started is you like either make your own culture or you get it from somebody else, or it's called a starter. And now I'm equating starter with culture. And the other thing that's popping up is, oh, nice, dang it. Oh, hello, little friend. Have you named it yet? So maybe you've already talked about this as a metaphor. I've loved everyone else's metaphors so far, but it seems like the starter is the culture, and it goes through its own like life cycles. You feed it or it dies, and it passes on. It kind of self-replicates. And like when I fart in the kitchen, I'm adding a little bit of me into the culture, and so it's evolving a little bit.
That sourdough just got a little more sour.
Yeah. But I mean, I've been thinking, like, the second I started making sourdough, I thought of the TLC, and I was like, oh my God, the
like
TLC is the
loaf.
leaven. Yeah, it is. It is. Like, you can add it into any context or estuary, however you want to. You can't define the undefinable. But it does feel like a starter culture that
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant. I love that. I love that illustration. I think it's true. I think it's like very biblical, like the seeds, and
yeah.
it is kind of like a slow ferment, which is, I don't know. It's totally another subject, but it's on my mind too. Is like that Uber Boyo comment of like, this generation has the most fluid intelligence, because he was talking about like we're used to the internet and long form conversations, and we listen to podcasts at 2 times speed, and we're just like, but like, that is a kind of culture, and it's a kind of formation, and it's a kind of initiation. But how does that relate to like knowledge and belief and wisdom? Like it's something, but it's very much, there are no solutions, there are trade-offs. But like only if you think of information as like static objects where you're just taking in lots of them, and you have this fluid intelligence where you can like see patterns in different ways. But like you're still assuming that universal kind of liberalist, modernist base that is, to me, makes you blind anyhow. But yeah, I love the starter thing, but the body is still whatever the starter's in. Like you can't have a starter without a body.
Right. And maybe what that is in the TLC is what you've been experimenting with the last few weeks, which is adding just a little bit of structure into your streams. Just a gentle structure, I feel like, is maybe the container that we need to.
Well, you need some, yeah. You can't, because that's probably the walls of the body and the religion that probably change it. Well, that's probably like the faithful innovation, or as a group chat has been saying, that we're all Protestant now, or we're all reformers now. But in a sense, like all religion has to have that. It has to evolve and change, because it is becoming what it's supposed to be, and you have to do that. But me adding structure, I'm a big non-interventionist, because that's my broad, as an anarchist, I think I have to be a non-interventionist, because that's why I call myself an anarchist, because I think most of the problems that we're trying to fix are due to previous interventions, like, and I don't want to be foolish about that. It's like modern cities, and everybody laments the modern city. Well, that's because of the combustion engine. So like, when we intervened with the combustion engine and everyone adopted that, now we have modern cities this way. And so like, and I want to be wise with interacting and all that stuff. And I tried to do that with, even this and social media.
Because you don't want the structure to become the religion. Like,
no. The structure is not exactly the religion, because the religion is, some of it's hidden and mystical,
sour. It's that sour.
Sometimes it
bread.
needs a little bit of that fart. Where's that fart come from? You can't add that. If you tried to systematize and structure and like to what, like how many microns of like fart do we add in, you're gonna really mess up your sourdough.
I mean,
Lance.
I have a whole a whole theology around farts and the Holy Spirit, but I'm gonna kind of just pass it on to Lance for now.
The wind moves where it will. Lance.
Come on.
Good morning, everyone.
Hey, buddy.
Good morning.
Luke, you're fantastic. I just wanted to just let you know you are fantastic. What you provide, it's life changing. I think you certainly are probably the greatest voice in this little corner, and I appreciate you.
Jeez, man, I half believe you, because I know, because of our long storied history and your knowledge of all of my psychologies and neurosis and copes. I need affirmation. So this is like when Lewis said in his first of the Ransom trilogy, like the virtue of, or he says like I gotta commit this to memory, but he talks about civilized man. He says half of which is virtue, half of which is vice. It's like social politeness. It's just like that. It is so nice, but also it's fake.
No, this thing that you're swimming around, I think, is really important, and I think it's really important for, like, I think about my 20-somethings or whatever to kind of get this thing. So there's a couple of things. First thing that I've been thinking about as you relate to, like, you're talking about culture and religion, and really to me, culture is the wide road Like it's capturing all those things. It comes out in certain distinctives and creates things, but it's the wide road, right? And broad is the way that leads to destruction, right? And then religion is that thing that to which you attend, right? It's that focus thing. I think for those of us for the Christian, it's the struggle to focus on that narrow way, right? Like what's the thing that's going to cut through all the other bombardments, the combinatorial explosion that you have. And it's so I've been thinking about culture is that broad thing. And then as I think about that as it relates to AI, and it's interesting. So people are probably hearing about this because I'm going to talk about this because we're actually trying to do this. So I work in a Christian high school association, and we're thinking about what the future of education is going to look like, right? And one of the things we realized is using AI, call it personalized, but really call it personalized education, where we get kids through the book learning stuff in about 2 hours, which really you can do. But then you have that extra 5 hours, and what we're trying to get them to is to engage in things that will help them become real human beings, right? And so it needs to be screenless. And as I think about AI is consuming all this stuff, right? It's the broad road. It's consuming all this stuff, and then it's trying to distill down to these answers, right? And so we're moving into this place where it is consuming the culture, whether the ideas are crap or not, Luke, right? So we think the God that's coming for us, the AI God, what it's doing is consuming all the ideas in crap, Luke, right? And distilling it into a narrow way that isn't the thing that which you should attend to, right? Because it tries to give answers, and actually we live in the paradox, right? The tension. I think Ian McGilchrist, think about all the stuff that biblically or Jesus, we're living in all these tensions, right? Pick up my cross, but my yoke is easy, my burden is light. Like all this stuff that's just like living in that tension. And so I've been listening to you, Luke, and the whole idea of this knowledge being ideas and stuff and whatever, like no. And we are consuming the broad way and have been bombarded in a broad way. And the answer is the focused narrow way, which is very different than what we're living in, right? So because when Jesus was walking, the culture, he was responding to the culture. And if you look throughout the Bible, the culture is doing the culture, right? And they're doing that. And he's continually trying to point you to that way that will always look different than the world or the wisdom of the world. The cross is foolishness, all that other sort of stuff. So at any rate, that's my little ramble in highly intuitive rant all over the place, Luke. But that's what I was thinking.
Good. That's good. Thanks, Lance. My quick response to that, then I'll welcome Claire. Is I really like what you said at the very beginning of your rant, which is I think religion is what you attend to, but that gets into the weird thing about salience, right? That Jordan Peterson talks about is like, why do you attend to the things that you attend to, and is that really subject to your will? And that's a little bit of what you're culturing, because like the culture is what you have a little bit more volition over, and it's and where you can add in structure, because like you're consciously aware doing that. But what you just straight attend to, you don't really have like a choice about in the moment. It just is. It just pops up in your salience. Like, why am I looking at the things that I'm looking at? It's not like you kind of think you do, but even that goes into, I forget what the experiment is. Rupert Sheldrake talks about of where your choice is actually predetermined before you're even consciously aware of it. You're doing things before you're acting. Your muscles are actually moving before your mind is even doing it. you're like retroactively thinking that you're the one controlling all those things, but you're just kind of doing it. And that's why habits are more fundamental. So that attention is you're either attending to this thing or that thing, and those are really slowly shaped over time. And
So that's why for me, the one thing, and I was talking to my friend who's my best friend in life, and we did ministry together. He is a highly disciplined and focused person by nature, right? And so he needed to break free in the Holy Spirit a little bit, right? Like he needed to be unbound from, because he could get up every morning, 4 a.m. He's in his Bible, he's journaling, never misses it, right? Can keep his focus. But then he became very much a man of rigor, and God used me as a vessel, this kind of wild, highly intuitive, charismatic guy to like bust open this whole Holy Spirit thing that he was like, whoa. On the flip side, I have a problem. I'm a person who struggles with discipline and focus, right? That's not my thing. I can be charismatic and I can be moved by the Spirit and all this other sort of stuff. But in my life, I had found myself, I'd lost my sobriety again, came back, talked to him. He was very, as a good friend would be, he basically gave me Proverbs 12:1, which is basically, he who loves discipline loves knowledge, and he who hates correction is stupid. So
you've always been great at that, Lance. You've always been great at,
Well, I'm coachable, but
taking
here's
correction.
what the Orthodox way of life allowed me to do. As an extemporaneous prayer, I'm all over the place. Think that movie, The Apostle, where he's hollering at God up in the attic or whatever, that movie, Robert. So anyway, but what I do is this little simple prayer rule life where I say the Trisagion prayer, and then I get into the creed, and then I get into the Jesus prayer, and I have these fasting things. I was the person that needed the scaffolding to give me the attention tools, right?
Yeah.
Help me attend. And then I go to these services and I follow this pattern. It helps me attend. And then my cat brain squirrel get distracted all over the place. I was a person that needed that. And so what the church does for me is it helps me attend to the thing when not only is the world bombarding, but I'm wired to be a highly distracted person. Because I'm an idea guy. I'm thinking. You and I have this in common, Luke. Like, ooh, this. And then I see something, and I'm like the guy that has the meme with all the strands everywhere. When I hear a thing, in my head, the strands go off, and I'm connecting 20 things at once. Like, boom, this thing goes off in my head. And this and this and this and this and this is tied to this and to this. It's wild in there, and it happens in a millisecond.
Right.
But I've got to stop that thing, because culture also, if I consume too much Twitter or this, I will have this and this and this and this and whatever. I need to get to this thing, to this narrow road.
Yeah, let's so I have lots of thoughts about that. Let's let Claire in here. She has some ideas about culture and religion stuff. So let's see where that goes. And then we're gonna definitely a hard out at hour 30. So we got about 20 minutes max left. Claire, hit us.
Hi guys.
Hey.
I couldn't resist the title of it because I think words mean things, and if we don't get them right, then we will just confuse ourselves, kind of like algebra and getting the values wrong. So culture is basically a product of religion. Culture is what people do. It could be a good culture, it could be a bad culture, drug culture, casual sex, pub culture, drink culture, a bad work culture. And as for religion, it's basically the beliefs, values, and practices and rules of the religion that the group have. And then, of course, we will go into questions like, well, who is a member of the group? And what is the religion? And I guess for Americans it's going to be hard, because you're not supposed to have a religion, right? You're a country with no religion.
Well, that's the. I mean, we
That's
talk about
actually
that.
not true. No, that's not true. They were.
I mean, we
didn't
talk
want to
about that a
create
lot in the
big
corner.
church,
We're
but it was
deists.
founded. Yeah, it was completely. If you read the founding documents, it was completely founded as a Protestant nation under God. So, but the problems with liberalism, I don't disagree, Claire, that
That's a religion.
causes problems.
Liberalism is the religion.
Sure, absolutely, it all is. You're not really adding anything
See, I
profound here,
would.
Claire.
There's part of it that I don't, because when you were saying like before, and I put this in the chat, like words are words the culture, religion, and even saying words have meaning. I think religion really is, and Vervaeke talks about this, like it's the difference between what he says religio and credo when he's speaking about these, is like religion is too fundamental to encapsulate in language. It's it's like a person. A religion is really like a person, where like it's not containable within the constraints of language. Sure, can you have knowledge and
I'd like to
articulable and
try.
self-aware propositional knowledge of persons and religions? Yeah, you can point at things, but like
Well,
it's
yeah,
not
you
exactly
get this
those things.
But surely that's a counsel of despair, saying, plebs are, not supposed to think about these big ideas. Shut up and,
I didn't
go
say we
feed
shouldn't
your
think about
cattle.
them. That's what I do all the time.
No, Vervaeke was saying
Oh.
that, wasn't he? He was saying, it's too big an idea. You'll just get yourself upset and confused. And I'm saying you can't actually say religion is a group belief system that says we are the people who believe in X. We are the people who always do X but never do Y. That would be a start. That's a pretty sort of general, universal.
But even that, it's putting religion in a hard either or thing, and I think that's what Vervaeke is saying is you can't do that with religion. It's too fundamental. That is the creedal level, where you're saying this or that, and religion is too fundamental. It includes both this and that. It's like the cup. When you say the cup, it's the body of this cup. But when I'm saying the cup, I'm also saying not this over here, not this air. This air isn't part of the cup. It's in relation with the cup.
Yes,
to say the cup
so
is not
the cup, and the rest is not cup. But what I'm trying to say is that a lot of people think that their own belief system is a religion. And I'm saying, no, if nobody shares your beliefs, then it's not a religion. It's only a religion if it's capable of binding a group of people. It could be a cult, and then we can talk about the difference between a cult and a religion. And I would say a cult is a new religion trying to overtake the established religion. But basically a religion is a group ideology that members of the group have all agreed to subscribe to.
See, I would probably
benefits.
disagree with that.
Got a
I don't think
question for
religion
you.
is ideological at all.
Isn't it? It's fun.
No.
It's very political. People do kill each other over religious
Polis
issues.
in like the old sense that it like makes a body of people, but it's not political in the sense that it's legislative and ideological and full of a bunch of people bickering and arguing about details. I mean, that's often downstream of religion, but like biblically, religion is this: to take care of orphans and widows. That's religion.
Well, that's charity, isn't it?
St. Paul said that's religion.
Most religions, successful ancient religions, do have an element of charity because it's also about being nice to members of the group, looking after members of the group so that they don't go and join some other group, right? I mean,
Claire, what do you think about sourdough and farts?
That's where I was going with this. Thank you.
See, I said it was St. Paul. It's James. Sorry, I messed it up. Religion that is filed before God is this: to visit orphans and widows in their affliction, to keep oneself unstained from the world. That doesn't even. I mean, there's a lot of action there, not a lot of dogma, and it's saying like that's what religion is to be holy, to do good things, to engage with human flourishing, not to debate endlessly and hate people because they disagree with you about what causes human flourishing.
Well, that's philosophical or theological, but surely these words should be understood properly by those who wish to discuss them, even if most people do not wish to do so, because it's important to choose the right religion, right? I mean, unless we're just going to stick to the religion of mum and dad for, inheritance or social reasons. If we're thinking of politics, it might be, something to consider if you don't think your religion is working, or you haven't got the right one, or maybe you need one, or whether the founding fathers want Americans to have religion. There's a lot of mention of religion in George Washington's farewell speech. He
But we're
said,
saying but what we've been saying, what I've been asserting is that everyone has a religion. There is no not religion. Religion is how you manifest in the world. It's what's salient to you and how you act in the world. So like your religion can be an anti-religion. So you could say like this Christianity that I was raised with or whatever, I don't like that, and so I'm turning away from it, and then new atheism becomes your religion. We started to say that. The new atheists, when they first started, wouldn't have ever said that was a religion, but now that's become culturally appropriate and emergent to say new atheism has become a new kind of religion. But it always was. Because to say that I'm not this is to be something else. You have to be bodied, and however you are bodied, this is my assertion, is your religion, which is actually what James was talking about. Okay, let's welcome Paul and then Neil. Paul, what up, buddy?
Hey, I'll pass to Neil because I think I'm having some technical difficulties. I'm going to jump back on and on.
Let's pass to Tom Cruise here. What's up, Maverick?
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I be a doomer?
Please.
Do I have permission? All right. People need to suffer more before they find religion, before they see it as necessary. I don't think we've suffered enough.
Yeah, very often, I think. Or you have just like or you have merely the whiny Protestant religion, which is just like and activism. Like that's what activism is, probably, is that you're protesting everything that's wrong with the world. And yes, and perhaps suffering can bring you out of your activism into true religion.
There's someone in my church, young guy, Zoomer generation. I was talking to him briefly, and it's like, oh, I can't, I don't know what to do, and I can't. He got laid off or something. I don't know his exact situation, and I said to him, I've seen you wear a suit in church. Like, what's stopping you from wearing that suit, going to every single business in the local area and dropping off a resume and applying for every single job? It's like, well, I don't actually want to do those jobs. I don't know what I want to do. I'm like, well, do you want money? I don't know, people are going to live the lives that they're going to live. And so long as we're not suffering too much, we're pretty much content not doing anything, and that's my attitude. And
what do you think about
continue until morale improves?
Let's we'll maybe come back and visit Pick and Choose comment here because he's disagreeing with you, Neil. But let's see what Paul has to say first. Paul, you got your stuff sorted?
Hopefully. I think there's a role for liturgy in this, and I think that people have been kind of beating around it. It really the worship of the people, and there is how we worship together binds us together and is that participatory knowing. And a lot of your catechesis in Catholicism and Orthodoxy is going to be there's a train coming, so let's make it loud. Yeah. So I don't know if you can separate religion from liturgy, because that is religion lived in many contexts, and that's the stuff, the memes, I guess, that provide the structure. So perhaps religious culture is really bound up in that liturgy. Sorry, I got distracted, so I'm
No, that's all
rambling.
right. I mean, that's like what you were saying, right? Because liturgy as the work of the people, well, that's what they're doing. Like the work of the people is what they're doing. So that's their religion, technically, right?
And that charity can be liturgy it if it's partaken in a manner which is ritualistic for the intent of the will of God, or whatever end they're trying to gain religiously. So my church the church I was part of did a Wednesday night homeless shelter thing, and then they would go and eat dinner with some of the people in transitional housing. It was the same every week. The things you were done, and it was intended for, this is how we are reaching out to Christ and the poor. And so there was a liturgy around the charity, and it was the work of my church interacting in this context. And so, and I think that's where and that happens in many ways. But I think there's a liturgical element to the charity, which makes it then religion. And probably a Methodist could say better things about that than I could.
Do you think culture is like what we want and religion is what we have to do? And as long as times are good, we feel like we can separate what we want from what we have to do. Like, what is our responsibility to the Lord versus like what we actually want? And as long as times are good, we can separate those things. And then we remember embody that, oh, actually, turns out we do need that vertical.
All drinks must be in seal-proof containers when riding Valley Metro.
I guess there's the wild, and there is so if I live in I think of these like wild pastures up in the mountains, and the flowers are all over the place and it's beautiful. There's a culture there. There's an ecosystem there. It is of it. Yeah, it's that sourdough bread. And there are a lot of ideas out there, and some of them will kill you. But then there's the place you set, the home, the place you set apart. You build the garden. You may take some of those same flowers from the field and plant them in your garden, but this is the place you are intending to, for a purpose, to make your home. And so I guess
can I give you
that's an analogy. I don't know if it's a good one.
Yeah, no, I think that is a good analogy. So something that comes to my mind, so I'm in New Orleans. Something that comes to my mind is Mardi Gras. So Mardi Gras starts out as like this necessary reversal festival where it's necessary to be ridiculous and to get all the craziness out. And it's necessary to get all that craziness out so that you can purify yourself and have a genuine Lent, 40 days in the desert prior to crucifixion and resurrection. And so it's like, okay, how can we make, so it's to serve the religion. So Mardi Gras starts out as, okay, how do we serve this 40-day period as best we can? Okay, let's have a feast. Let's go crazy. Let's get all the wild stuff out so that then we can focus. You know, we're done with that crazy. And then somewhere along the line, it's like, no, the crazy thing becomes the more important and more appealing, broader, more broadly culturally speaking. Like, will tourists come to a city to repent and fast and, basically give up spending money? Is that the reason that tourists come to Jerusalem, to repent and fast? Or do tourists come to Jerusalem so that they can pay the money changers in the temple and sacrifice, buy the richest sacrifice to get the indulgence to make their way into heaven? Do tourists come to New Orleans to properly engage in, the Catholic Lent and the crucifixion and resurrection, or do they come to engage in the crazy frolicking? And I'm not against tourists, by the way. I'm just saying this is the way all things go. This is the way culture goes, because we forget the thing that's behind the thing. We forget the absolute necessity for grace for the Lord. And we forget that until it becomes rough enough in our individual lives and collectively that we're like, oh, this is the whole point that we have Christmas trees, or this is the whole point we have New Orleans, we have Mardi Gras.
So just to throw an idea out there, so it seems like there's an inversion that happens when the priorities shift from the fringe to the center, and then your new religion is some Dionysian thing where it becomes about the festival, about the drinking, and it's the fringe in the culture now becoming the center, and now you have new religion, and people may hate that, and I think that, not to make it political, but you could make those extensions in other areas.
Yeah, I would. So here, I'm going to give my last words, and then I want to go around and get some last words because, got to get going. Got to get going. So I think someone was saying this in the chat, and I think I would agree with this, that religion is what holds the group together, whether conscious or unconscious, assumed or implied. It's why anyone is doing anything together. And then from that, I think culture can arise and different people can do different things. Like I think there's a common religion in America that allows for pluralism, that allows for multiculturalism. But there's a religion underneath that holds you together. And that's kind of like my stream where I said, you can't be in communion and actually disagree. Because you have to agree to be in communion. That's why you're there. You may debate ideas while you're in communion, but even having the discussion is having a religion that's holding you together. I think I'll just leave it there. That's my last word. Who's ready to rock out a last word?
I can.
Oh,
Okay.
Sorry, Sam. You're next. Neil, you go.
Okay. So I think what held us together as Americans is this rugged individualism, the pioneering spirit, the 50 acres and a mule. We give you the freedom and you can build a life for yourself. And, I think as nature has subsided as our chief adversary, as our chief difficulty, it's man against nature. As nature has subsided, then culture has become our chief adversary. And I'll throw kind of a provocative thought here, but so maybe the way Americans can recapture that rugged spirit that holds us together, that we're kind of braving the wilderness, is that we might, there's a potential that as the rest of the world closes down freedom of speech because the internet is just too rough, it's too wild, wild west, too many people are getting hurt in the wild, wild west of the internet. So we got to bring the real ID, and we got to lock it down. We got to get the sheriffs in to all of the internet, and we got to take out the outlaws and all that. And it's like, maybe as Americans, we can actually keep that rugged individualism through the hardness of the internet, you could say. And we could develop a toughness of spirit by enduring and, without closing ourselves off to the world, but just accept and endure the craziness.
We could cultivate internet garments of skin.
Yeah, exactly. So this is maybe a topic of another live stream, but yeah.
All right, rock and roll. All right, Sam, why don't you go next, and we'll give Claire. See you, buddy. We'll give Claire the last word.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, thinking about Jordan Peterson's wrestling with God idea. I think what he did was kind of point us to that underlying cultural foundation, saying, here's something that is not quite right. We're not struggling with reality. We're not wrestling against reality itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's led us to this wisdomless place. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Respecting of actual reality is the beginning of wisdom. And so I just wanted to share that. Something about wrestling with all of these things is where I'm at. And I thank you for allowing me to wrestle with you.
Wrestle with God, maybe not our idols or something, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Sam. Appreciate it. Claire, you got some final words, some final wisdom for us.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity, Luke. I think Americans need this moral system to bind them together. And I know John Adams said things like the Constitution can only be operated on by a moral and religious people. And Washington said we must, with caution, indulge the supposition that morality can be maintained without religion. And I think we are kind of moving towards a point when this all becomes clear, because if we want a religion, we want one that is easy to believe. And once it's easy to believe, the people expected to believe in it will not be fighting each other about what it actually means. And since the founding fathers foresaw the problem and has separated the church from the state, then we are just left with the question of is the Abrahamic God logical? And because presumably this is what the Abrahamic religions are arguing about, whether their method of worship is correct. And but I think they can agree that there is only one Abrahamic God. And that I think would be a step forward. And then we ask ourselves how we should most correctly worship him, and make things easy for ourselves.
Right. How to correctly worship the one true God, huh? It's a good word. All right, Claire, thanks for coming. Thanks everybody else for being here. And until next time, we're going to leave her there. All right. Bye.